Well, I'm back to doing this inside because today it's raining, which is okay, I guess. But all right, so we left off. Avon had gone to the top of the little hill inside Stagecoach Pass Park, and she uncovered a necklace. It was a turquoise necklace, and it had been a little bit tarnished, and she's curious where it came from. Part of the mystery. Connor, Zion, and I sat outside on the lawn together before school, waiting for the first bell to ring. Connor studied the necklace while Zion flipped gently through the fragile sketchbook. Every now and then a brittle piece of paper would flake off and we'd all gasp. Zion finally found the page that had the sketch of the necklace. "That's definitely it," he said. Connor held the necklace up. "The metal is nearly black. In this sketch it's light gray." "Yeah," I said. "My mom told me that's because it's tarnished silver. Look at the shape of the stone, though, and that little vein running right through it. It's definitely the same." "But why was it up on the hill?" Connor asked, and then barked. I shrugged. "I've no idea." Zion looked from me to Connor and back again, his eyes huge with alarm. "What? What?" I asked him. He covered his mouth, shook his head like he was thinking something terrible. "What?" I said again. "Dead body," he whispered. Connor and I looked at each other, and I finally said, "I don't know." "Well, what other explanation could there be?" said Zion. "Someone murdered this necklace-wearing person and buried the body up on the hill. Why else would there be a necklace there?" Connor looked at me wide-eyed. Rodeo clown mafia," he snickered. I shook my head at him, and I tried to remain serious. "I spend a lot of time up on that hill, and I've never seen any sign of graves or anything." "Well, it could have happened a long time ago. Maybe bushes and cactuses and stuff have grown over it. I've heard a dead body makes good fertilizer." Connor and I laughed and said, "That's gross. Where could you have possibly heard that?" Zion scratched his hand. "Well, I think I maybe read it in a comic book." "Oh, well then it's definitely true," I said. Zion tore a handful of grass out of the ground and threw it at me, and I shook my hair out. "Well, I guess there could be a dead body up there, but you'd think I'd feel all creepy when I was up there on that hill, like I'd feel a chill or a shudder or something or a tremble." Connor smiled and barked, and then immediately we heard another bark from the nearby crowd. Connor's face dropped, and I turned and glared at the group of kids standing near us. Some of them were covering their smiles with their hands as they snuck glances at us. I turned back to Connor and said, "You should not put up with that." Naturally, I would never want to call attention to myself, but there are times when my temper overwhelms my desire to go unnoticed. So I stood up and I shouted at the group, "Who's ever doing that? It's not nice. You should be ashamed of yourself." I sat back down on the ground with a humph, and Connor and Zion looked at each other as shocked at my behavior. "There," I said, "that should do it." Connor and I ate lunch with Zion behind the office most days now. Connor still hardly ate anything, but he took a bite from time to time. Sometimes he'd spit his food, but he always tried to aim it at the brick wall. And every now and then, though, Zion and I would have to do some serious ninja blocks when a pretzel or a grape flew at our heads. I sat with the boys on the sidewalk by the office as Zion said, "I think I might audition for the Wizard of Oz." And he blushed so hard that I could see red coloring through his brown cheeks. "Oh, yeah? What part?" I asked him. He shrugged. "I don't know." And I thought for a moment. "You would make a good lion." He frowned. "Why? Because I'm fat?" "No, because you need to find courage." And I nudged him with my foot and said, "I'm only half kidding about that." He smiled. "Have you guys ever done anything like that?" "What? Auditioned for a play?" Connor asked. "Yeah." Connor looked at Zion like he was crazy. "Yeah, right," he said. I frowned at Connor and said, "You'd probably be a good actor," I told him. "Yeah, the only part I could ever play," Connor said to me, "would be the part of an annoying yappy dog." I didn't know what to say about that, so I told them this. My school back in Kansas held this playwright contest in 6th grade. Anyone could submit their own ideas, plot, and script for a play, and the winner got to have their play produced. I submitted the most awesome script of all time. It was called, wait for it was called Down and Dirty in Kansas City. Zion snorted a little bit of his juice box and it came out his nose. He wiped it away and said, "What was it about?" I cleared my throat. Down and Dirty in Kansas City is the story of a completely awesome ninja named Harold who lives in Kansas City and fights criminals with the help of a trusty pig named Gerald. So Harold and Gerald are this crime-fighting duo who stop a gang of criminals from robbing a bank. They also fall in love, not with each other, with a beautiful vixen lady and a lady pig. And the play ends in a double wedding for Harold and Gerald and their partners. Connor giggled and Zion choked a little more on his juice box. And the climax of the play, I continued, was supposed to be when Harold and Gerald finally face off with the main villain. I tossed my hair back. Played by me. And the exciting battle to death ends in Harold and Gerald ripping my arms off and blood sputtering everywhere, and I drop dead and go onto the floor. I had thought we could borrow those fake arms again from Emily's mom. Well, did you win? Zion asked. I totally didn't win. Plus, we had to have a meeting with my parents and the counselor. They had read my play already and thought that it rocked, but they were a little confused about the whole thing. It turned out most of the meeting had said things like, it was great, and they said things like gruesome and horrifying. Well, anyway, this kid named Luke won the contest. His play was called Desert Moon Over the Desert. I found the title a little bit redundant, but I guess the judges thought his work was spectacularly creative. What can you expect from the same people who thought Down and Dirty in Kansas City was a stinker? Really, Connor agreed. What was this play about? Well, Desert Moon Over the Desert was about a moon, seriously, that looks down in the desert, I'm not kidding, and falls in love with a coyote. I'm totally serious. And the coyote falls in love with the moon. Of course, the moon and the coyote can never be together, so the coyote howls and eventually befriends a cactus, and everything turns out all right. Huh, Zion said. Were you in the play? Yeah, I played the cactus. My costume was this drab green thing, so I wasn't even bright enough to be on stage, so we had to spray paint the whole thing down with a sparkle spray. Then we had this giant paper moon on the stage with lights behind him, so then I was all sparkly and shiny from the light of the moon, and that was actually pretty cool. I loved being up on stage, but I had the most ridiculous lines. I still remember them. I recited my lines just as I had done on the play. Coyote, the moon is so many miles away, but I am here on earth with you. Coyote, my new friend, don't prick yourself on my needles when you give me a friendly hug. Coyote, if you were thirsting to death, I would give you life that comes from my cactus juice. Zion giggled and said, That's kind of awful. I'm sure you're going to have way better lines than the Wizard of Oz, I said. I hope so, he agreed. No, really, I think you're going to love it. When the play ended and everyone clapped and cheered for us, I felt like I could do anything. I even thought maybe I could have a career as an actress. Well, why couldn't you? Connor said, and I gaped at the boys. How many limbless movie stars do you know? Neither one of them said anything, and I shook my head and I looked at Connor and said, Oh, by the way, my mom said I could come home with you after school and she'd pick me up before dinner. Really? Come to my house? His face brightened. I thought you weren't allowed to go to anyone else's house when their parents aren't around or they don't know them. Well, my mom said it's okay because, while she doesn't know your mom, she knows you, and your mom works so much and sleeps in the evening, and I guess my mom can't really get a good chance to meet her with all that's going on, so she's going to be home after school, right? Connor shrugged and barked and said, Yeah, she'll be home, but she'll be sleeping. She worked a 12-hour shift last night. Has she ever thought about trying to get shifts that go during the day? I asked. Well, she has to take what she can get right now, Connor said, and the job pays pretty well. He looked at Zion. You want to come over too? Zion shook his head and said, I have a dentist appointment. He grimaced. The next support group meeting is coming up, I told Connor. Support group meeting? Zion asked. Connor grimaced. Do you mean social event, Avon? I glared up at Connor when he spoke to Zion. It's just a little group that meets at the hospital every month. Sorry, Zion, Connor said. It's for freaks only. Hey, I cried. No one there is a freak, and especially not you. Connor blinked his eyes, shrugged, and barked. If you say so, Avon. I let out a loud breath. Anyway, my mom's already planning on taking us. Connor raised his eyebrows. Such peer pressure. I guess I have to go if that's the case. Yes, you do, I told him. Connor let me into the small 2-bedroom apartment that he shared with his mom. I scanned the room and noted the sparse furnishings, a 3-person couch, a small coffee table, a side table, and a lamp. No pictures on the walls, and I saw a couple of unopened boxes stacked in the corner. How long have you been here? I asked. A little over a year, Connor said. I know. Mom works a lot, and she hasn't had a whole lot of time to decorate or anything. Plus, we hope that we're not going to be here for forever. I tried not to look too sad for Connor when I told him. I hope so, too. Connor barked as we unloaded our bags onto the small kitchen table. It only had 2 chairs, and just then a bedraggled-looking blonde woman wearing a nightgown and a robe entered from the small hallway. You home, baby? She said, and then she noticed me. She looked both surprised and embarrassed as she put her robe close and tightened the belt. Oh, she breathed. You brought a friend home. Oh, hi, Mom, this is Avon. She glanced briefly at my torso and said, Hi, Avon. I'm sorry I'm not a bit more presentable for you. No, that's okay, I said, trying to ease her embarrassment. Connor told me that you had to work all night. She glared at Connor a bit and said, Yeah, I was just coming out to tell him that there's a bowl of macaroni and cheese in the fridge for him to heat up for dinner. I'm sorry I don't have more. No, it's okay, Mom. He said, Mom, Avon just came over for a couple of hours to play some video games. Her mom's going to be picking her up before dinner. Connor's mom looked so embarrassed about everything that I felt bad for Connor that he hadn't been able to give her some warning about me coming over. I'm sorry for the surprise, Mrs. Bradley. I'm happy to finally meet you. Well, I'm happy to meet you too, Avon. It's nice to see Connor with a friend. Perhaps you can come over again on another day when I'm a little bit more myself. I'd love to. I didn't know what got into me, but then I said to him, and maybe you can come over to the next Tourette's support group meeting with us. Connor jerked his head at me, and I immediately realized she didn't know anything about it. Something I had already suspected. Her eyes were large with surprise, and she said slowly, Tourette's support group meeting? Connor shrugged his shoulders. Yeah, Avon and I went to the support meeting one day while you were working. Connor, I wish you would tell me about these things, and her eyebrows furrowed together. How'd you get there? Well, Avon's mom drove us. Oh, don't worry, I said, noticing the look of concern on her face. We're not like a psycho family or anything. We're really totally normal except for I motioned toward my shoulders with my heads. But my parents, they didn't have anything to do with my arms or my non-arms. She gave me a smile. I'm sure your family is lovely. She turned her attention back to Connor. I'm happy that you're going to a support group, baby. Just when Avon's mom comes to pick her up, I'd like to meet her too, please. Connor nodded. When she went to him and kissed the top of his head, I thought things were better. I'm going back to sleep, dear. Could you wake me up in a little bit so I can make myself a little more presentable? Connor nodded again, and then he walked back down the small hallway and disappeared into the dark bedroom. I turned toward Connor. Your mom's nice. I don't know why. He cut me off. I wish you hadn't told her about the support group. She doesn't have time to go, and now she's just going to feel really bad about it. Well, why don't you at least give her the chance to decide what she wants to do? She doesn't need any more stress that she doesn't already have. I don't think the support group would stress her out. I'm sure she's more stressed out not knowing what's going on with you. Well, I think she's better off if she doesn't have to deal with me. I suddenly saw things clearly. It wasn't at all that Connor's mom couldn't stand him, as he said. It was that Connor couldn't stand himself. He blamed himself for all of his mom's problems. His dad leaving, the tiny apartment, her work schedule so hectic. I knew he felt that it was all his fault. But from what I had just seen, I strongly doubted that she felt the same way. Connor, she's your mom. She doesn't deal with you. She loves you. Why don't you let her? Why are you always trying to fix me? Connor snapped. Why don't you just be my friend, David? I don't want to be fixed. Now, I don't want to fix you, I said back. I don't think you're broken or anything. I just want to help you. Friends help each other, you know. Well, I'd rather play video games with me. I'd rather you just play video games with me. That's how you can help me. I lowered my eyes and I ran my rainbow-striped flat over the dingy carpet. Okay, I said, but I won't stop going to those meetings. You can come if you want. Whatever, I shrugged. I don't care. Connor's face softened and then he smiled. Yeah, you do. You care. And yeah, I'll come. And I'm going to stop us there.